Welcome, folks. It has arrived. It is finally here. The Marc Clair Show. This is episode 0. This is where I'm just going to kind of tell you what the show is all about, who I am. If you don't know who I am, if you've found me, if you don't know me from my previous life as a libertarian podcaster, I'm going to introduce myself a little bit for you today as well. And, just as a disclaimer, I hate doing shows where I'm just talking to the camera. This is why I do an interview show. I like to have someone to interact with, to, bounce off of. So it's a little awkward for me. I'm just going to toss that out there to do this whole one-on-one thing. One-on-one, one on everybody. Me on a camera is how it seems to me. But nonetheless, I feel like this is something necessary to do, both for longtime fans of my work at Lions of Liberty, as well as for new people that happen to be stumbling upon this show. So just a little bit about me for starters. For those of you that don't know, I was the host, founder of the Lions of Liberty podcast, not the founder of the organization overall. That I founded along with my friends Brian McWilliams, John Odermatt, who still do Lions of Liberty. I still want to encourage people to head over there, follow that show. If you are a libertarian, if you're into libertarian philosophy, current events, that sort of thing, they're doing a bang up job over there, and they have really expanded that show and been trying some new things since I left. So I definitely want to encourage people to check that stuff out. And if you're looking for old Marc Clair interviews from Lions of Liberty debates, all the stuff I did over the last 9 years, that is all still going to live on the Lions of Liberty network feed. So I want you to go over there, subscribe to them, support what those guys are doing. And if you ever want to see my old interviews, hear my old interviews, that would be where to find them, the Lions of Liberty network feed. Now, what's going on here? What is this show? Well, first, let's tick back the clock for those that don't know me from that libertarian podcaster lifestyle. Just to recap me real quick, I got really interested in, I would say, political philosophy due to Ron Paul when I was in college, thanks to a good friend of mine, Howie, sort of someone we called the godfather of Lions of Liberty. And he is in many ways someone that's gotten me thinking different about a lot of different things in life. And as I got interested in politics, I also became interested in a lot of other subjects at the same time. I ended up getting really captured by the political end of it, thanks to Ron Paul. So he's who inspired me politically. He's who inspired me to be brave and be bold. Really, his performances in Republican debates where he was being slandered and smeared and mocked while just speaking his truth, saying things the way he thought they were, really not concerned about political gain per se as much as getting the truth and what he perceived to be the truth out there. So that's what I always respected about Ron Paul. That's what inspired me to talk about politics more in my personal life. That's what inspired me eventually to form Lions of Liberty, to talk to Brian, to talk to John, to talk to so many people, get them interested in those same ideas. And eventually that did roll itself into the Lions of Liberty podcast, where my real approach there was, which will be very similar to the approach that I'll take on this show. When I do a podcast, when I invite someone into my show, I'm inviting them as a guest. I see them no different than if they were a guest that I invited into my home. And, not the only, but, I think the main criticism I ever got over the years of Lions of Liberty is maybe you didn't push back enough on this. You didn't push back enough on that. And that doesn't mean there's not room for pushback. But for me, I'm not inviting a guest to a show to argue with them. I'm inviting a guest to the show to get their beliefs out there, and to get their story out there, and to sort of, to pass forward what I find of value from them. So that's what I will continue to do with the Marc Clair Show. And I will continue to exercise my, my skills of inquisition, of honest inquisition, because I really do want to get to know what makes these people tick, because I do believe they have value to share, just as I did when I hosted those same interviews with Lions of Liberty. So what you can expect from me is to really dig in, to go deeper, to dig into what makes people tick, and how they navigate this reality, because at the end of the day, that is kind of the theme of my show. Really the theme of the Marc Clair Show. If I really just want to get down to the basics, the Marc Clair Show is about Marc Clair. It's about whatever I think is important in life. And the reason I went with the Marc Clair Show, I did have a few other names that I was kicking around. Some I liked, some I didn't. But at the end of the day, any title that I chose for this show had the potential to eventually sort of put me in a box, as I felt I had been in with Lions of Liberty towards the end. I felt that no matter what I wanted to talk about, if it was different subjects or even subjects within the political sphere, being a libertarian podcaster sort of kept me in somewhat of a box as far as what I should be talking about, what I should be covering. And especially as I became much more critical of the libertarian movement, it seemed like most of what I was doing was criticizing libertarians and libertarian philosophy, libertarian political strategy, more so than the philosophy itself, I would say. But at the end of the day, when I don't see something helping much in the real world, that's what I want to get to on this show. I want to help you in the real world. I want to impart knowledge that I think can help you in the real world. And that's going to take, a few different forms. But at the end of the day, it's the Marc Clair Show because I want to have the freedom to do shows about whatever I want. I want to talk to whoever I want and not have to think about, does this fit into this box? But there is a theme to the show. There is an actual overlying theme, and that is understanding and navigating our reality better. Something that I don't necessarily think simply understanding and embracing libertarian ideology really does at the end of the day. But I'm not going to get into all that stuff. That my point of this episode is not to really go back and re-exercise the demons, so to speak, to rehash the arguments about libertarianism. Maybe I'll do that in some other shows. You'll certainly still see political commentary from me, particularly perhaps on my Substack, marcclair.substack.com, my Twitter at Marc Clair Show. Not again, but for those of you new, to spell my name, for those of you listening in audio, it is Marc with a C, M-A-R-C, Clair, C-L-A-I-R. And you can find links to everything you need to follow the show, to share the show, to watch the show over at marcclair.com. That just goes right to my link tree right now, while I hopefully build out, as one of my goals, to build out a website where I can host and control my own content. For now, I am still relying on platforms for bonus content and that sort of thing. And I try to cast a wide net. I know people like to listen in different ways, watch in different ways. So you can find the Marc Clair Show, for now anyway, on YouTube. We'll see how long that lasts, because I'm certainly not going to censor myself or censor my guests or anything like that. So we shall see how long the overlords at YouTube want to put up with me. But also on BitChute, on Odyssey, on Rockfin, where I also do premium content. And for those of you that want to follow my premium content, in fact, if you were a premium subscriber, before I even launched the show, I already have subscribers that have come over and supported me. So I'm incredibly grateful to those initial subscribers who are already helping to fund this show as I'm just getting it off the ground, as I was busy creating graphics, trying to fix the lighting, getting new cameras. And this stuff is still a work in progress, because as I tell my podcasting clients, as I talk with my very first guest, Tony Merkel, at some point you have to just get started. So while there's a lot of things I want perfection never really is not something you ever really achieve. It's really just something you're always working towards. So I think I've improved a lot of things. I think I have a lot more to improve, and I will do that, thanks to your help, thanks to my early supporters. So you can support this show on Patreon, patreon.com/Marc Clair Show. If you're Patreon adverse, you can also support me at Subscribestar. Just find the Marc Clair Show on Subscribestar. I'll link to that, of course, in the show notes for today. I really just want to cast a wide net, and wherever I seem to get the most traction, I'll stick with. If I don't get a bunch of people on Subscribestar, maybe I'll can that one. But I already have a lot of followers over on Rockfin, and what's great about Rockfin is that if you follow my content, if you follow my show, or if you follow anyone on there, you only got to subscribe once. $10 a month gets you everybody's premium content on Rockfin, and my minimum pledge on Patreon on Subscribestar is $8 a month. So you can subscribe to me for $8 a month, and I encourage you if you do, because that does go more directly towards me, minus fees and that sort of thing. Whereas Rockfin, you get everybody's content, but that's for only $2 more a month. So you get Sam Tripoli, you get Eddie Bravo, you get Jay Dyer, you get Courtney Turner, you get Charlie Robinson. I'm just naming the people that I follow on there, but there is certainly a whole bunch of different creators on there as well that I didn't mention here. So if you even like one more besides me, you might want to look into Rockfin, because it's just really a great deal if you follow and want to support and get premium content from a number of different creators. But back to what the show is all about, and to me, a lot of the political conversation that I've seen in the libertarian world, but I say libertarian world just because that's where I come from. This is true of political conversation all over the place. It very much scratches the surface. We talk about what we see in the headlines. We talk about whatever politicians want us to talk about. We talk about whatever they make us argue about, whatever little buttons they push. And I get wrapped up in it as much as anybody else. But but there's so much beneath the surface, I think in many ways what we see in the political world is a material representation, a material expression of more of a spiritual war. And I really believe that you can't properly understand politics without understanding belief patterns, without understanding the spiritual realm, without understanding propaganda, false flags, crisis actors. These are all things that affect the way we perceive things, but a lot of them aren't really talked about. A lot of them are considered taboo subjects, and they're not going to be taboo on the Marc Clair Show. Certain platforms that I'm on might consider them taboo. Again, we'll see how that goes, but that's why I have some other great platforms that I'm on that I know will not be censoring me, whether that's on Odyssey, whether that's on Rockfin, et cetera, et cetera. So I encourage you, BitChute. I'm on BitChute as well. I'm all over the place, casting a wide net, trying to find my people. Find my people. That's really what ultimately this is all about. Building a community. That's what podcasting is all about. Ultimately, it's building a community of like-minded people, people that find the same things important, that share some of the same values. My show's not going to be for everybody, especially if you followed me before at Lions of Liberty. I know that I have a lot of people that have followed me over here, and I think if you enjoy my style, you enjoy my sort of my spirit of honest inquisition, then I think you will enjoy the Marc Clair Show as well. But some of you might not. Some of you might not dig the direction I go. Some of you might want to stay more in the type of content that I was doing before, in which case, like I said, Lions Liberty, continue to support and check out those guys because they'll probably be doing more of what you want. But for me, I think we need to constantly be inquiring about the true nature of our reality and use the gift of our rational minds to understand how to navigate this realm, this crazy world we're in. And, my attempt to help you do that is going to take several different forms. I can kind of use the first 4 episodes of the show as an example of sort of the difference. I can now that I know that they have occurred, they're recorded. They actually all exist already. Again, if you're a premium subscriber, Patreon, Subscribestar, Rockfin, you can already watch the first 4 episodes of the Marc Clair Show and the extended versions of those episodes, the unedited, uncut versions of those episodes. And when I say unedited, the public shows are going to be approximately an hour. That's about what I'm shooting for. I want to respect your time. I like 3-hour Joe Rogan podcasts as much as anybody, but I know your time is limited, and I'm asking you to, subscribe to a whole new show here. So I'm going to try to keep the public show limited to, I say that as today's interview is like an hour and 10, but around an hour, This is not broadcast programming where I need to fit into a certain time window, but I'm going to do my best to keep the public show around an hour in length to respect your time. But if you want more, if you crave more, we get even more wild in the extended premium versions of these shows where we not just do the main interview, but then we hop over into the smoke-filled room. And if the main show wasn't weird enough, we're going to get even weirder, talk about some much weirder things. And, well, all I can say is you got to check them out. You got to check them out to see what I'll be doing in there. But just to go over the first 4 episodes of the show, I think can sort of highlight the different ways that I'm going to try to do interviews that help you understand and navigate our reality. So episode 1 is a conversation with Tony Merkel of the Confessionals podcast. And I think this is a great interview for me because it really shows sort of all of the different ways I'm trying to look at things. And I think those things will sometimes fall into the material, how to improve your material life, how to be more of an entrepreneur, how to make more money, how to improve your position in life. That will certainly be an aspect of things, and as well as, of course, the spiritual side of things, something that I have been exploring myself over the last 2 or 3 years, something I don't claim to have answers on. But I do have insight on, I guess I could say, through my own self-exploration, through my own experiences in life, and through the experiences and beliefs and exploration of the guests that I'll bring on. And with Tony, we touched on a lot of the spiritual side as well, especially with the content that he covers. He brings on people who talk about their own paranormal experiences, Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, demons, weirder things than that we can't even necessarily put a name to. And talking to Tony a bit about how that sort of coincides with his own religious and spiritual beliefs as a Christian. And, so for that episode, we really touched a little bit on the building of his podcast and the growth of this podcast. And I think you can take a lot of those lessons, and apply them to anything you're doing, whether it's a podcast or some other type of vehicle or just any kind of business overall. And then we do get into the spiritual aspect of wealth as well. So that's why I wanted to make him my first interview, because I kind of knew we could touch on both sides of that, and just to kind of show you how new this show is for those people that have been following me over at Lions of Liberty over the years, to kind of just give you an example of how different the Marc Marc Clair Show is going to be from Lions of Liberty. With episode 2, I brought on a guy named Skylar Swall. I just found him on Twitter, and there's definitely a lot of sort of like masculinity, self-improvement type coaches and consultants on Twitter and just out there right now. And to the point that you can see them overwhelming. Like there's too many, like they're all generic at sometimes. But Skylar sort of stood out to me based on a lot of what he was saying. And again, what really attracted him to me or me to him is really a lot of the spiritual nature of things. And that's going to be a theme no matter what we're doing. I think we're always going to tie in the spiritual nature of things, even when a certain episode is more, materially based, you might say. So with Skylar, I mean, we really got into his own story. You know, he kind of went through a degenerate 20s, as I've mentioned before, as many people have gone through, and really went from sort of someone who's very promiscuous, using drugs, not very motivated in life, to now where he has just over the age of 30, has won a kickboxing match, got himself in shape, has a beautiful wife, and really just completely changed his own mindset and his own attitude. And I think his story will really help you show ways that you can turn things around no matter where you are in life. And, again, all this is a reflection of me in some ways. It's the Marc Clair Show after all. When I bring on guests that resonate with me, that I think are important, it's probably because they tap something inside myself through my own experiences. And that's what I want to sort of help impart upon you guys as well. Episode 3, I bring on Charlie Robinson of the Macroaggressions podcast. And this is one where we really go, I don't know if you want to say off the reservation, but we go into stuff that just seems to be taboo in the normal surface level political world. We do a deep dive on the concept of false flags, something that Charlie has done a tremendous amount of research on, something that may get me in trouble with the YouTube overlords. But I think it's hard to have an honest conversation about politics when we're just pretending that every event we see is as it is portrayed. That doesn't mean everything we see on TV that's pushed down our throat didn't really happen. But even when something did really happen, it's being sold to you for a certain reason. It's being pushed in a certain way. And then there are false flags, which can range from events that didn't happen at all, or are simply not what they were purported to be, or do not have the same explanation that is pushed upon us for whatever reason it may be. So we're going to do a big deep dive on that with Charlie Robinson. And then finally, episode 4, on the surface, again, we're always looking at the surface and what's beneath the surface here, the seen and the unseen there for the libertarians. I talked to my friend Lance Syka, who I got to know originally in the libertarian movement. He has since kind of backed away from that a bit, as I have. But what I got into with him was a lot of his own journey as an entrepreneur, which started when he was a kid. I mean, this kid, he's a man now. He's been working since he was 13, always really looking to level up and push his entrepreneurial game forward, which is putting him in a much better position in life. And just to circle back to Lions Liberty a little bit, and I think one thing that I saw in the libertarian movement, but I'm sure this is true again across the board. I say libertarian movement because it's where I came from, but really of all people, libertarians are pushing forward the concept of bodily autonomy, self-ownership. And yet I saw so many caving to mandates, caving to vaccine mandates, taking shots they didn't want to do, didn't want to take because they were afraid of the consequences, whether those consequences were social, not being able to go on a trip, not being able to go out to a certain restaurant or go to the gym, or whether those consequences were much more dire, like losing your job, being afraid to not take it because you don't know how you're going to support your family otherwise. I was in that same position. For those of you that don't know, I was in that exact same position. And I'm not saying this to boost my own ego or to tell you how great I am, but there was something inside me, inside my spirit, that told me I can't do this thing. I'm not going to do this thing because it's the wrong thing to do. And a lot of us know what is the wrong thing to do, but still do it. Guilty. I've done this before in my life. I thought to myself, this is the wrong thing to do, but I'm going to do it. Whatever. I think I was at a much different place in my life when this happened. But to act like I wasn't facing consequences. I mean, the consequences I was potentially facing, not just losing my income. I was also in the middle of the immigration process for my wife and her son that we have now completed. And we are here in Florida. But I mean, part of that is, showing your income and things related to the material side that I was willing to give up because of my spiritual belief that you don't tell me what to put in my body. And the reason I talk about this is because I really want people to, whether it's because they need more money in their bank account, more skills, to have that confidence to just break away from the job and do things on your own and become more autonomous. Whether it's the lack of material knowledge and material skills, or whether it's the lack of a strong enough spirit that tells you, maybe I don't know exactly how this is going to come out. Maybe I don't know exactly what's going to happen here, but I'm not going to violate my own integrity. I'm not going to violate my own principles, my own spiritual beliefs. I want to arm you. I want to better equip you. I want to help you have your own great reset, essentially. I want to help you see the areas in life where you're vulnerable. And I certainly have many as well. I've learned a lot more about those in the last year. But at the end of the day, I didn't cave. And now I'm in a position where I'm in such a better position than I was in. And yeah, there's less money in my bank account than would be there if I had caved to the mandate. No doubt about that. No doubt about that at all. But I'm in a much better position, and my family's in a much better position. So sometimes you just have to bunker down and know that, and not be too afraid of the unknown when you know you're doing the right thing and when you know you're on the right path. And I think that's a difficult thing to do when you don't have a strong spiritual center, whatever that may be. I'm still trying to find mine in many ways, but I certainly have more of one than I did 5 years earlier than that, 10 years earlier than that. And look, at the end of the day, I am a male. So my experience is from the perspective of a male. In many ways, I see a lot of like 20 something year old men. I met many of them at Yale Rev back in August. And I've met many of them throughout my travels in the libertarian movement. And I see myself in many young men. And not to say that I don't think ladies will get value out of the show. I'm just telling you where my perspectives comes from and what I can relate to better. Obviously, I can relate to men better than women because I'm a man. I still think women will get a lot of value out of the conversations and discussions I have on the show. I will have female guests as well, even though you didn't hear any in the first four. There will be female guests pretty soon. Don't worry. But yeah, at the end of the day, I want to try to arm you. I want to try to arm you with more skills, with more confidence, with a stronger spirit and a stronger understanding of the nature of our reality, because I think all of those things are what's going to help you weather the storm that is to come. I do believe the last 2 years were only a preview, only a trial run of things that are to come in this society, in this world, in the great reset world, whatever you want to call it. I don't think we're remotely out of the woods, and I don't think anybody should get complacent. So I'm hoping this show will inspire you to level up in whatever areas you are the most lacking. And that's going to probably be different for everybody, but I hope to give you enough to go on here to maybe start some of your own journeys in some of these areas. I'm not going to solve all the problems, but I do hope to inspire. I do hope to inform. I do hope to get people thinking, and I hope to entertain, of course, because really, what's the point of all this if we're not having a good time, if we're not enjoying the journey? It is all about the journey. The journey, the friends we made along the way, or what have you. And in podcasting, it really is the friends I've made along the way. I've made tremendous friends and connections through podcasting. It's a wonderful thing. That's part of why for my premium subscribers, I'm not just offering more content at the very basic level. Yes, I'm offering not just, obviously we'll get early releases. My patrons already have the first 4 episodes of the show, so they will get early access to all the episodes. They will also get the extended versions of every episode that include those smoke-filled room segments. So that's the first thing that they get on the surface. That's the $8 a month level. And I know for those of you saying, 8, why not 5? Why not 2? Other podcasts do 5. Look, here's the deal. It's not 2013 anymore, so a $5 base level then is probably worth more than 8 right now with inflation. But look, I'm trying to build something here, and I kind of know what kind of money I need to bring in, and I've done some calculations on one hand. On the other hand, though, to be honest with you, if you're sweating $8 a month, I don't want your money. I'm going to say that to you right now. If you are sweating $8 a month, I do not want your money. I'm happy to have you as a supporter. I'm happy to have you, listening to and sharing the public show, which is where a lot of this valuable content will be. I want you to level up your game. I want you to get to a point where you're not sweating $8. All right, then come back and consider supporting the show. If you're not there, then don't worry about it. Or if you're already on Rockfin, maybe supporting other people, cool. You don't need to do anything. You can go, follow me on Rockfin and find me there. So that's kind of where I have that base level set for a few different reasons. But beyond that, on the higher tier levels, I do just have 3 total levels, $8. And then I have the $33 smoke-filled room level. I plan to do some sort of extra happy hours for that group. You'll kind of have more one-on-one access to me in that case. And then anyone at that level also gets 25% off for as long as they're a member off of any services that they use me for. So I also do podcasting consultations. I help people launch and grow their own podcasts. I have several clients in the podcasting space that I also work with now, creating promotional material for them, graphical material. My wife and I have sort of combined our skills into a little bit of a side business doing that stuff, social media marketing, anything along those lines. So you can use us and my wife as well. I lump us all into one here at Marc Clair Media, but you can access any of our services and you will have a 25% discount at that level. Finally, the Lucky 77s, my highest support tier. Again, these are only on Patreon or Subscribestar because Rockfin is just that straight up 10 months. So if you just want the content, Rockfin might work for you. But if you're looking for higher level tiers and you might want to use some of my services, use some of my consulting services, the Lucky 77 tier is a great one for those of you that are serious, that are really at a point where you're ready to launch something. So what you get at that level, you get everything. You get the lower levels, all the content, the exclusive happy hours. You can get 25% off all services and that sort of thing. But at that level, at the Lucky 77 level, you will also get every month, you can either get a 1-hour consultation with me. I normally charge $60 to $65 an hour. So it's a pretty good deal right there. Or you can get a mention on every podcast episode for a month of a product, website, whatever it may be. So if you're already in the stage where you have a product, you have something to sell, you have something to launch, it's going to be harder to find a cheaper ad spot than by supporting me that way. Or you can, kind of flip flop them. You can do a consultation 1 month and then hop over and do ads or whatever mentions the next month. So try to put things out there for people. At the end of the day, I'm trying to help you improve your lives, and I'm trying to do it by sharing things that I find important. I'm giving you the show that I want to hear. I'm creating the show for me, but by creating the show for me, I hope to connect with the people that are like me, people maybe younger versions of myself, people in their 20s who haven't gone through what I've gone through, who haven't gotten to that point yet. And, maybe you can skip a lot of the trouble that I've gone through in the last couple of years, a lot of the not being prepared, a lot of the lacking of the spiritual that I had for a long time. I've really gotten a lot more serious about a lot of these things in the last couple of years. And it's not a coincidence that that's the same time period that I met my wife and formed a family. And these things are very, very related. But these are things that I'd like to help relay to you guys, and I hope to provide you guys value. So either way, whether you support me financially through one of those platforms, Rockfin, Patreon, Subscribestar, whatever it may be, you can also support me on Substack, where I do plan to pick up some writing now that I have put a lot of the time, basically all my time the last month or two has been getting everything for this show done. And man, I have so many people to thank. Bert Grimm, who did the incredible logo for this show. I also got an incredible animation done from the music and that logo. Thanks to John Page. John Page created the musical theme for the Marc Clair Show, and it all just came together so perfectly. I really did feel like the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, was sending these people to me to help me create the exact look and vibe that I didn't even know what I wanted it to be, but I did, but I didn't. And then they all delivered it to me in what turned into just a fantastic package that I couldn't be more happy with. So thank you to those people for helping me literally get everything together for launching the show. Thank you to my very early supporters who have just been incredible getting on this thing before anybody else. I'm trying to pull up the names right now because I'm not going to edit this video. I'm not going to edit this podcast. This is just me talking to a camera. I am going to tell you right now, yes, my first 8 supporters who supported me before they even saw a single episode. These are awesome people. Jason Rink, who is incredible, cancel proof, the most canceled man in America for several of his films. He was on my old show, Lions Liberty. Go check out that episode. Benjamin, I don't know who Benjamin is, but you're Benjamin and you're awesome and you supported me before barely anyone else. Of course, my good friend Eric, who I grew up with, he's also supported us on the Second Print Comics podcast. Don't forget, guys, I also host a comic book podcast. So if you're into comics, check out the Second Print Comics podcast. He was one of my first supporters there, the one that introduced me to comics as a kid. And now he is supporting me here on the Marc Clair Show. Couldn't be happier having Eric supporting me. And then some names some of you might know. Pete Quinones. All right, not a bad endorsement. Though Bishop, not a bad endorsement. Justin Campbell, a guy who did a lot of our video promos and that sort of thing for Lions of Liberty, and also hosts a couple of shows himself. Fact check this the morning after. I think there's like 9 more shows, but Justin is an absolute great guy. Again, it's the friends you make along the way. He's one of the great people that I've happened to meet through podcasting. And my boy Derek Evans, who has supported me again on a couple of podcasts, Lions Liberty, Second Print Pod, and then good old Washington State of Liberty. I'm not sure if he wants his real name. I know I'll say his real name is William, but that's not going to help you figure out who he really is. But just in case he doesn't want his name shared, since it's not public there, he uses a screen name. Nonetheless, these are the elites. These are my real elite eights. Ironically, that is the name of that $8 support level, the Elite Eights. But I actually started out with 8 people. So it kind of worked out. I have 8 people supporting me at $8 a month before I even launched. That's not including all the people that are supporting me and following me over on Rockfin, where I've already started to pick up a pretty good following just from the extended premium editions of the show. So I'm very excited about the Marc Clair Show. At least 8 people are, and I know a few others are as well. And I, of course, have to thank John Odermatt and Brian McWilliams for a number of reasons. One, I haven't really talked about this too much. I was ready to quit podcasting around 2015, 2016. I didn't feel like the show was going where I needed it to do. I felt a little lost. I felt like I just couldn't keep up with it myself, especially financially. I was just spending all my own money to do this thing, not making any money. So I decided to bring them on as my business partners and fellow podcasters. And it's been just a pure pleasure to watch them grow as podcasters on their own, to the point that, I could just take off, and now they run Lions Liberty all on their own. So I thank them for a couple reasons. One, well, they're great friends of mine, so they support me on and off air regardless. But, also, their involvement in Lions of Liberty is what really helped me grow as a podcaster at a point where I was kind of ready to hang it up, or at least teetering on that decision. And they made the decision easy to not do, because of how they joined me in the business and how they got involved in the podcast. And that really helped inspire me. When it became something I was doing with friends, it really became a whole different thing. So I'm just incredibly grateful, and always will be, to Brian and John for that. And then also for making it so easy for me to leave Lions of Liberty. I can't say enough. When I was so nervous approaching them with this idea, like I just felt like the libertarian brand wasn't right for me anymore. I wanted to do something else, but it's just a hard thing to bring up. How do you've been in business with these guys for almost 9 years, known them for 20 years. So it was, I was a little nervous bringing it up, but they couldn't have been more understanding of it, and really wished me nothing but luck, and made it so easy for me. Just really didn't make it a stressful thing at all. So I really, just from the bottom of my heart, thank Brian and John for helping me in so many ways, because I really truly wouldn't be where I am now without both their support. So thank you, gentlemen. Again, go support Lions of Liberty. In the meantime, though, I'm going to continue to bring you the best content that I can possibly bring you. I'll be very open to your feedback. I think I mentioned there's a Telegram channel. You can find all these links again. Every support site. You can find links to everywhere you can share the show, everywhere you can follow the show. Find links to the Telegram channel, my Substack. You can also email me at markclairshow@gmail.com. Very open to feedback, especially in these first few episodes, because they are pretty different from each other. Did I mention episode 4? I don't know if I mentioned episode 4. I did. Lance Psycho. Yeah, see, this is why I don't do these just me staring at the camera, because I get lost. I forget what I said. I try to look at notes. It's a whole weird thing. So I'm going to wrap this thing up. But thank you so much for tuning in to episode 0 of the Marc Clair Show. And hey, in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.